we start because it's so nice and quiet now. It's great to see you all. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. My name is Tanya Tabara. I'm Senior Advisor for the Foundation for West Asia and Africa. We are very glad to have this event here today for several reasons. One, the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights is one of our important and strategic partners. We have several joint projects, and I would like to draw your attention just to one project which I'm particularly excited about and that I think is very interesting for many of you as well. We are going to launch in November 3 films on international human rights law and how it excludes specifically many people in the region and how it used to play a role in legitimizing European colonialism. And still today, it is used to justify exclusion and lack of access to resources, as for example, in the field of land rights and trade. We will launch the films in November, and invitations will follow very soon. And the films are done based on a book on the decolonization of law by the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights. We are also very glad to cooperate for the first time with refugees in Libya and the Alliance for Refugees in Libya. The support of human rights defenders and media platforms that demand accountability, as well as the support of migrant communities and refugees, are some of our main endeavors at Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. Our offices in Athens, Beirut, Tunis, Dakar, and Johannesburg, to mention only a few, work with partners who document the human rights violations that migrants and refugees are facing and who advocate for the improvement of protection and accountability systems. It is always our aim in all these processes to give a voice to those affected by human rights abuse. In all our work, we support specifically solidarity structures as well as peer-to-peer learning and exchange across borders. So therefore, I believe this conference is very interesting for us with its practical goals and its focus on solidarity structures. I have myself closely followed the human rights violations and the externalization of border controls in Lebanon, where I was deployed over the past years, and I came back only recently. I know a lot less about the current situation and challenges in Libya, and look forward very much to hear more from you panelists today. It will also be interesting for our office in Tunis that wants to reach out more to activists in Libya in the future. So far, regionally, we focus more on Egypt, Tunis, of course, and Morocco. So, I think the last issue is a technical one. Please keep in mind that we are recording the session. And Silvia is recording there and filming, so she's filming only the panel, but also if you use the mic later, your questions or comments would be recorded, so if you don't want them to be recorded, then just don't use the mic, and I think that's it for the moment. So I look forward to the presentations and discussion, and wish us all an interesting and fruitful evening. And I hand over to Dorina.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tanya, and thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Dorina Clarice. I represent Alliance for Refugees in Libya. Here tonight, our panel is entitled Evacuation, not Externalization, and the right to move against the EU for the few. We're here tonight to discuss possibilities of safe passage and evacuations from countries such as Libya. Our Alliance for Refugees in Libya was born almost a year ago. This is not the first event in this series called From Tripoli 2. It all started in Geneva, where we had From Tripoli to Geneva, almost 2 years ago. Then it was Brussels, then it was Bologna this year, Rome, and now here Berlin. In 1 month, there will be a similar event to this one, called From Tripoli to Sicily, where we'll be interacting, as we are doing in this event now, with local actors, with state actors, with civil society, in order to find legal and possible ways for people to be evacuated from countries that cannot ensure the respect for human rights. Tonight, we will be discussing this with several guests on a subject that is extremely important, especially now in Germany and in Europe, where the situation is turning more and more to the right. I'm sure you've all noticed, or you've been following the debates on migration in Germany in the last few months after the Solingen attack. And I'm sure you know in Brussels there's been the summit that started yesterday, and people are speaking, or the politicians that are speaking of new ways to restrict migrants from trespassing European territory, of how to keep human beings away from European territory, of how Meloni's migration centers opened recently in Albania are such a great idea to keep people out of our Europe, and how the asylum right can actually be suspended if a political leader finds very unsuccessful for his political initiatives, such as Donald Tusk in Poland. In Germany, the border controls that have been introduced very recently are not showing any visible results, but they are kept in vigor because the state has just decided that immigrants, illegal immigrants, are the #1 enemy to the German state. So the situation is not looking very good for human rights, for people seeking a better freedom, a better life, a hope to live elsewhere rather than in their own country of origin. So we are here to speak about evacuation. How better to speak about it than with people representing civil society, such as Naima here from Refugees in Libya, and other guests that we have that will introduce themselves shortly. The question is, how can we evacuate people, and how can we get them from Libya to Europe, in such a Europe that is turning more and more to the right today? Naima.
Yes. Hello? Yes. My name is Naima Hussein. I'm a co-founder in Refugees in Libya, but also a human rights defender myself, and also a refugee myself. I'm very happy to be here tonight with everybody on the platform. Refugees in Libya, for those who don't know, is a non-governmental organization of a self-organized group of migrants who stand for justice for refugees and people in Libya and North Africa, to be said. So, yeah, I'm very looking forward for the discussion and hearing from everybody in the field. And also the audience, please do not feel shy to ask any questions later. So, yes, hopefully we'll be adding to each other and leaving here somehow satisfied. Yes, Allison.
Exactly, we'll be moderating together. Allison, please.
Hi, my name is Allison West. I'm a senior legal advisor with the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights. Is it working? Yes. Yeah. ECCHR is a Berlin-based NGO that uses legal means to work together with survivors, affected communities, and partner organizations around the world in order to enforce human rights. We do that in different ways, but yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now.
Please, Mirka.
Hello, I'm Mirka from SOS Humanity. SOS Humanity is a non-governmental search and rescue organization which operates the rescue ship Humanity 1. And we are part of the so-called civil fleet, which is a wide range of civil society actors who are operating in total 21 ships, smaller vessels and bigger vessels, as well as 3 airplanes. And are also another important actor is Alarm Phone, the civilian distress hotline, where distress alerts are being forwarded. And yeah, this is is an overview of the civil fleet, and I know that many of you are also members of the civil fleet here. And I'm happy to be here and to discuss with you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Hi, I'm Julian Parker, member of the German Parliament for the Greens, well, for 3 years now, and before that I've been also part of the civil fleet. I've been on the Central Med a couple of times. Was chairman of an organization that was running a boat, a rescue boat on the Mediterranean, and in the German Parliament I'm working on migration politics, broadly speaking, and of course with a strong focus on the external borders, on the dangerous routes all across Europe and the European asylum system, just to at least name a few spots. And I'm happy to be here and to actually have also a chance for us all to speak about Libya, which in my perspective sometimes is something like a forgotten conflict and a forgotten country that should not be forgotten in this situation.
Yes, before I turn the word to David, I'd like to point out to all of you that you are more than welcome to ask questions. In English, in Arabic, in German, there are translations, not an issue. And you are more than welcome to interact with us, with all our guests. It's supposed to be a discussion for all of us. It's not supposed to be only a panel where only people speak, but the word is yours if you want it. So anytime you wish to have an observation, just let us know and somebody will get the mic and be there for you. Please, David.
Thank you, everyone. Many familiar faces and new faces, but I hope that from today onward we will take the battle off and continue to challenge and fight for what we believe in. Today, as refugees in Libya, we are here because of too many things: imagination and determination. Looking at those pictures down there, and when we were in Tripoli, the years that we spent in Libya, it was only our imagination that gave us the strength to imagine that one day our voices, our human faces, our stories could be a huge bridge over the Mediterranean rather than being the cemetery as it is today. This dream have taken us through determination, through the sacrifices of our loved ones, the human rights defenders who have been silenced for the work that they do, either for themselves or for other people. Throughout the protest, we were constantly crying to the outside society, to the outside world, and these people were you, the common people, the politicians sitting next to us, the serious organizations. With this realization, it's an effort of every day to which we continue to sacrifice. Either on our dreams, because we have to let go of those original dreams, to have a common dream which is a space for our voice to be heard. And I'm grateful for all the support over the 3 years that most of you have given to us, the recognition, which is the most important part. I'm grateful on behalf of all refugees in Libya. Going back to Libya, we started the protest because we had no other option than to sacrifice, a word that I will repeat. Through this, not so much has changed, but us sitting here is a great testament that we are not people to give up. We are not people who have to be silenced. Over 100 days of protest, I have seen death, I have seen humiliation, I have seen everything that should not happen to human beings. After our protest was dismantled, some of us managed to escape, but those who could not escape were the ones that were taken to inhuman detention camps, which is directly financed by the European authorities. These people, they were not ordinary people, and they were ordinary people in every sense, but they were for us human rights defenders, fighting for what is just, fighting for something that should have been there from the moment they arrived within Libya. When we talk about international standards, when we talk about the recognition of refugees and the right to apply for asylum, we consequently lacked it. Even if it existed on paper, it was another nightmare because the institution, UNHCR, different ones, and the mechanism that exists only is a mechanism to dehumanize and not recognize us, to take away our human faces. Through this, my fellow human rights defenders, some of them who could not be here in this room today, were locked up for 18 horrible months, 2 years. Their lives were constantly put on hold, and they were being commodities, forced to work, forced to construct buildings, women experiencing rape, and every single day they were dying until 18 months. Together, we marched to Geneva, to Brussels, the streets of Rome, and everywhere we managed to have them at least set free to see the outside society. This outside society, they are seeing it through your eyes, through our eyes. But to this day, hundreds of them face destitution in Tripoli. They face lack of recognition, they face harassment. They cannot even speak for themselves to say, I was detained for 18 months without any judicial review. They cannot challenge that a certain neighborhood throughout Libya or in Tripoli is being put into raid in a non-discriminatory manner, to not recognize a child, to not recognize a mother, to not recognize a young man, to not recognize who is sick. Through this, we launched a campaign to advocate for them, to be the voice, so that our politicians in this country, the welcoming cities, the common people can understand and receive them as human rights defenders, not just as refugees. Because the term refugees seem to always take our humanity away. It seems we are helpless. We are not, but consequently there are mechanisms that put us in that spotlight of being helpless, of being unwanted species. But these people, they are not. I am one of them. I have lived life for 2 years here in Europe. I see many of you, I dine with you, and if I was to question you, no one would dare tell me that I am an invader, I am a criminal, I am this and that. For this reason, we have launched the campaigns in several cities, as they already described. But what is happening in Libya is something that we shouldn't turn away from. Now, with the conflict in Sudan, hundreds of thousands have fled to the neighboring countries, Egypt, and one of them, Libya. Libya has been a deadly country, either for the Libyans or for the refugees themselves for the past 10 years. We cannot deny all that. But how can we continue to look away without expressing or extending our solidarity equally, just because it's another continent? But in reality, it's just hundreds of kilometers from the coast of Italy, from the coast of Germany. All this, it's an invitation on this platform to listen to these people, to look at the existing mechanism, to question whether it's really Europe that stands for human rights, or it's an hypocritic regime that only deals with certain people of certain world, and this we bring the Ukrainian topic. But unlike for these particular 221 individuals, they are human rights defenders. The sacrifices that they have made is something that keeps me on the wake every single minute to this day, for the last 2 years that I survived from Libya. If I can do it, you can also do something. Not to stay awake all night, but a single email from you, a single call to your parliamentarian, a single approach to the state and telling them that I have a house. I am willing to recognize that particular person who is not recognized in Libya to come and live with me in Germany as a human rights defender. And this, I am very certain that our states, our politicians, will not look away from our request. In all, this is the invitation that we are making today. Now to give an overview of what is happening in Libya with the arrival of Sudanese refugees, it's deadly. Women are left homeless, children, who most of them have come unaccompanied, since the war in last year in April, they don't receive shelters. The only existing institution, which is the UNHCR and IOM, UNHCR, out of the more than 300,000 refugees who have fled from Sudan and arrived in Libya, have only registered about 60,000. How much can we look away? What about the other number? What about the other 800,000 people who are in Libya? They don't have faces, they don't have any dignity, they don't have any right. They are completely outlawed the moment they step into Libya. When you are an outlaw in every society, you don't receive protection, neither from the people, neither from the government, neither from any institution that exists, because it's a propaganda. The narratives that are being sold, does UNHCR tell the truth? No. Does IOM tell the truth? No. They are never working in our interest. For this, there are several voices from Tripoli. I will give them the voice. It's a huge sacrifice from them. Most of them have been attacked from the last days, since the arrest warrants were released from the ICC to look for the war criminals. Some of our comrades have been targeted and they now live in great limbo. But after all this, they still recorded their voices, their videos, to speak to you today. And we will turn to our technician. Please. Thank you.
أنا واحد من المدافعين حقوق الإنسان تحت الرتيبة. نحن كمدافعين حقوق الإنسان تحت الرتيبة نواجه إشكاليات وصعوبات ومعارضات في إنه نقدر نوصل صوت من لا صوت له، أو نقدر نوصل الانتهاكات اللي قد تتم قبل الميليشيات سواء كانت داخل السجون أو خارجها. قد تتم مطالبتهم قبل الأجهزة الأمنية، وقد يتم اختطافنا من قبل الميليشيات وسجن في أماكن غير معلومة، وأيضا قد يتم مداهمتنا بطريقة عشوائية كما حصل في 2020 في قرقارش. تم مداهمتنا وتم سجننا في سجن برشعات، وبعد ذلك تطور كلامنا منا ومشينا في CDC. قدرنا إنه نقدر نوصل للعالم المعاناة اللي نحن عايشينها كمدافعين ونحن إنسان، وقدرنا نوصل صوتنا للعالم. بعد ذلك أيضا تم مداهمتنا وتم إطلاق نار علينا. فبعد ذلك برضه ودونا في سجن إنذار، عملنا في سجن إنذار 18 شهر. بعد 18 شهر جواب كونا من إنذار. فجينا كيف نقدر نوصل المعاناة اللي نحن عشناها ومعاناة المدافعين حقوق الإنسان. بقينا نسمع مطاردات وأيضا في حملات يتم بطريقة أيضا عشوائية، وبيتم في برضه أيضا إرسال مختبر بتاع الميليشيات ودونا في السجون وبيطالبوا بفدية. ففي صعوبة جدا إنه نقدر كيف نقدر نوصل الصوت قبل المعاناة اللي إحنا قادرين نعيشها. لكن في الحملات الإبداع اللي قاعدين يقوموا بها المدافعين حقوق الإنسان في أوروبا، نحن قادرين إنه نقدر نوصل المعاناة والإشكاليات والتحديات اللي نحن قاعدين نواجهها داخل دولة ليبيا. وأيضا من التحديات اللي نحن قاعدين نواجهها كمدافعين حقوق الإنسان داخل دولة ليبيا أو في طرابلس، كلها طرابلس ما كنت تتنقل لأنه كلها عبارة عن بوابات. الشوارع كلها مربوطة ببوابات، والبوابات دي كلها بتكون فيها ميليشيات. فأي بوابة أنت مثلا داير تمر أو تركب مسافة 3 كيلو أو مسافة 500 متر بين البوابة، فتروح إنك مثلا ممكن تتعرض لسجن أو لمسك ودوك يسجنوك، أو كمان لو عندك تلفون عندك فروج ياخدها منك، أو كمان إنه يعني تتعرض لاحتكاك لجهات غير معلومة، وبعدها ممكن يطالبوا قروش مقابل إنه ممكن يفكوا سراحك. فدي كلها تحديات يعني نحن قاعدين نواجهها داخل ليبيا. فما قادرين نقوم بحركة أو مثلا إنك تقدر تعمل حاجة أو إنك تحرك مثلا حياتك لفترة. فدي الإشكاليات. لكن أكثر المدافعين حقوق الإنسان والحملات اللي قاعدين يقوموا بها داخل أوروبا قادرين نحن نقدر نوصل المعاناة والتعذيب والانتهاكات اللي قاعد تتم داخل ليبيا، سواء كانت في السجون، سواء كانت في التراكين، سواء كانت في البحر من الإطلاق النار الشيوعي. فأبرح إن إحنا قادرين نوصل رسائلنا ونوصل الانتهاكات اللي قاعد تتم داخل ليبيا.
السودانية في ليبيا. أول حاجة عايزة أتكلم عن المعاناة اللي بيعيشوها اللاجئين والمهاجرين في ليبيا. في الجانب الأول أن إحنا كلنا عارفينه، الجانب اللي بيعانوا منه أغلبية اللاجئين والمهاجرين هو جانب التعذيب، العبودية، الاضطهاد، والمعاناة الأكبر اللي بتكون في السجون. فالمعاناة اللي بيعانوها الناس في السجون معاملة لا إنسانية، معاملة قاسية جدا. بتمنى إنه يتم الإفراج عن كل اللاجئين والمهاجرين الآن موجودين في السجون. والجانب الثاني اللي نحن عايزين نتكلم عنه الجانب المخفي، الجانب الممكن ما في إنسان، ما في لاجئ، ما في مهاجر، يعني ما بيعاني منه، فهو جانب عدم الحريات، عدم الحريات الشخصية، عدم حرية التعبير، حرية الرأي، حرية المعتقدات، حرية الديانات. الحاجات دي كلها ممكن من أكبر الحياة اللي بيتعرض لها وبيعاني منها اللاجئ والمهاجر، وحتى المواطنين نفسهم بيعانوا منها. لكن في نفس الوقت المواطنين بيشوفوا إنه من الواجب وفرض إنه يتم تطبيقها على اللاجئين والمهاجرين، حتى لو هم قاعدين يعانوا منها، لكن الواجب إنه يطبقوها على اللاجئين والمهاجرين. فالمعاناة دي أي إنسان قاعد في ليبيا قاعد يعاني منها، عدم الحرية. فأنا واحدة من الناس كان دخلتني في حالة اكتئاب شديدة، عدم الحرية دي. يعني بكون قاعدة أفكر إنه ليه ما بقدر أخذ حريتي، ما بقدر أطلع براحتي، ما بقدر ألبس براحتي، ما بقدر أتصرف براحتي. وأكيد كله بيكون من حرية التعبير اللي نحن محرومين منها، وبتعرض حياتنا للخطر، ممكن تؤدي حتى ممكن توصل للقتل، توصل للتعذيب. إنك تكون مدافع عن حقوق الإنسان. فأنا واحدة من المدافعين عن حقوق الإنسان، حاليا بسجل في الفيديو وأنا خايفة إنه الفيديو يوصل لجهات معينة ليبية، أو يعرفوني أو يلقوني في يوم من الأيام. فبخوض كل الاحتمالات الممكن أن أتعرض لها. فإنه أنا أشتغل في حاجة زي دي، أساعد الناس، أكون مدافع عن حق الإنسان، فدي حاجة صعبة شديد في ليبيا. وبالذات لو أنت كنت مدافع عن حقوق اللاجئين والمهاجرين، فدي من أصعب الدفاع اللي أنت ممكن تدافع عنه. فكرة إنه أنت ما قادر تعبر عن معتقداتك أنت في الحياة، فكرة قاسية جدا، فكرة قاسية شديدة. فدي ممكن من أكثر الحياة اللي أنا بعاني فيها في ليبيا، وأغلبية الناس أو 3/4 الناس قاعدين يعانوا من نفس الحاجة دي. من أقرب الأمثلة إنه المثال، نحن حاليا قاعدين في الحي بتاعنا مجموعة كبيرة شديد طبعا من اللاجئين والمهاجرين، عائلات سودانية كثيرة وفي عائلات نيجيرية وكذا. ففي الحي طالبين منا المعونة إنه نحن كنسوان إنه نكون واقفين في الشارع ونتكلم ونتونس وكذا في الشارع. فلو حابة تتكلم مع أي واحدة من صديقاتك أو كذا تمشي في البيوت، لكن في الشارع وتكونوا مجموعة 3-4 مجموعة في الشارع، فالحياة دي ممنوعة جدا. وفي منطقة تانية برضو لدرجة إنه قالوا إنه دايرين يطلعوا كل السودانيين من المنطقة دي. دي أصعب حاجة إنه قاعدين يعانوا منها، عدم الحريات كل اللاجئين والمهاجرين هنا في ليبيا. وفي الأخير أنا ما حأجيب عن الدفاع عن حق أي إنسان ضعيف ومحتاج للمساعدة ومحتاج للدعم، لاجئ كان أو مهاجر. حكون دائما واقفة وداعمة لهم، وبعمل كل اللي بقدر إني أساعدهم فيه. وبتمنى إنه يتم احترام حق اللاجئين والمهاجرين، وإنه يتم احترام إنسانيتهم وحقوقهم في الحياة، وإنه كلهم يقدروا يتحصلوا على حياة آمنة وبلدان آمنة شديد، وإنه يتحصلوا على حقوقهم الإنسانية كلها ويقدروا يحققوا أحلامهم وطموحاتهم كلها. نحن كمدافعين عن حقوق الإنسان أملنا إنه نطلع من ليبيا ونقدر نواصل مسيرتنا بكل حرية، ويكون عندنا حرية التعبير، ونقدر ندافع عن حقوق الإنسان، ونقدر نقدم حاجة كبيرة شديد للإنسانية في العالم. بنتمنى شديد الحاجة دي. شكرا.
Hello everybody. I start by reminding you of why of Martin Luther King. Hello everybody. I start by reminding you of why of Martin Luther King that says a right denied is a right denied. I'm recording this video from heart of Tripoli, and I'm the one of human rights defenders in Libya who have started defending for our rights since 2021. During our journey of defending the human rights, we have passed through many obstacles and challenges, but we are still doing our best to not be silenced. I would like to thank all comers who raised the set and speaking on behalf of us and passing our message to the world. And I really thank all the activists, lawyers, and politicians who are standing beside us and organizing campaigns from time to time in different countries of Europe. We need from you to continue your activities because we really need your help and support. We have been exposed to different human violations. We have been arrested, we have been tortured, and have been broken to do labor hard for a very long time, just because have been the human rights defenders in Libya. We keep clawing and calling for our rights. We just need to be taken a safe place out of Libya. So let's keep fighting for our freedom. As a proverb said, no one is free until everyone is free. Thank you.
Heart-rending to see this, to hear these testimonies from Libya. They are in Libya and we are here. But it's necessary to see and to hear what people are experiencing there still, and what we can do from here to help them get out of the hell they're living through. So David, thank you for showing that to us on piano.
Not a very long one, but she's sitting here with me. She protested with me for 100 days in the streets of Tripoli. So even children did not give up on their rights. That's why I'm happy to have them here in this room, some of them sitting there. It's always about one person. It's not about the thousands, it's about a single soul that has a life and a future in itself. Thank you for all that you will continue to do from today onward. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very powerful and very heavy to process actually. actually. And I hope it really reached each one of you here. I don't know if you have noticed that each one of them was emphasizing that they are talking to a common person, a politician, a civil society organization. So they're really aware that we are here, sitting here as a collective, emphasizing their voices. So please do not underestimate the existence of you being in this room, because these people back there really have high hopes just because you are here and giving us the acknowledgement that we needed. So I'm very happy and proud of each one of you here to begin with. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, David. Allison, you have worked with David, I think, in legal issues in the past. So would you tell us more about this?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to follow something like that, but so at ECCHR, we try to work with legal means, as I said before, in order to enforce human rights worldwide. It's been a bit over a year now that we've been working together with David and refugees in Libya, and for the past 5 years, actually, we've been working to try to find ways to use the law to both challenge and seek accountability for some of the grave human rights violations and crimes happening against migrants and refugees in Libya and in the Mediterranean. So yeah, I can share just a bit about that work. We have especially tried to use international criminal law as one of those tools. That's one of many, and I think it's important to say up front that this is a broad struggle, and we as lawyers have different roles to play, and we see ourselves as kind of one piece in a puzzle of a broader struggle. So what I'm going to share with you is this one kind of specific experience, but I think that we'll get to hear also like really interesting perspectives from also those who are doing the concrete sea rescue work at sea, and then also the role at the political level as well. I think all of these things overlap and intersect, so just to keep that in mind. So, as I said, we've been trying to use the law to seek accountability, especially criminal accountability, for the extreme violence that has been enacted on people on the move, both in Libya and the Mediterranean, that you got to hear a few examples of there, everything from torture to enslavement, inhuman degrading conditions, severe deprivation of liberty, things like this. Our kind of approach has been twofold. We have tried to insist on the characterization of what's happening to people on the move in Libya as crimes against humanity, and then from there we've also then tried to establish that the criminal responsibility for those crimes against humanity not only lies with Libyan actors but also with European actors. And maybe I could just say a few words about why it's important for us that we see this as crimes against humanity. I think the severity of what's going on is one reason, and that's inherent in the concept itself. These are crimes so grave that they concern humanity as a whole, not just the individuals that are suffering the abuses. And then another is the context. So by talking about crimes against humanity, we're talking about crimes that are happening in the context of a widespread and systematic attack against the civilian population. In this case, against people who are or are even perceived to be migrants and refugees in Libya or the Mediterranean. We've really seen that kind of context take shape in Libya after 2011. After the downfall of Gaddafi, we saw the consolidation of a conflict economy in which migrants and refugees became commodified. And I think it's important to also draw linkages between that commodification enforced through a very concrete system, which we have clear and plenty of evidence of in Libya. Draw linkages between that and what's happening then in the Mediterranean in terms of the kind of enactment of European migration policies of containment that try to work together, cooperate with Libyan actors and incentivize actions on their parts in order to keep migrants and refugees in Libya, to keep them from reaching Europe. So the specific kind of legal actions that we've taken, we filed 2 submissions to the International Criminal Court. The first one focused on crimes within Libya itself and detention settings there, and focused together with witness testimony from a number of different survivors. Along with publicly available information, we put together an analysis and pointed to specific Libyan perpetrators of these crimes. And then in the second step, the next year, in 2022, we filed a follow-up submission in which we gave detailed explanations of 12 different emblematic incidents of interceptions at sea that resulted in returns of people to Libya, mostly by the Libyan Coast Guard. And from there, they were systematically sent back into detention centers where they then re-entered this kind of cycle of exploitation and abuse. So in that communication, we worked together with evidence from a lot of sea rescue organizations, groups like Alarm Phone, and other organizations that are also filing freedom of information requests to kind of understand the inner workings of organizations like Frontex. And with all of that, we were able to point to a number of high-level EU and member state officials for their roles in policies that then lead to the enactment of these interceptions and returns at sea. And for us, it's very important to note that we identified a common plan between the European actors and the Libyan actors in order to contain migrants and refugees in Libya. And that means that we see European actors as actually co-perpetrators of these crimes. There's been a lot of talk also of different kind of ways that, for instance, yes, it's wrong that European actors are funding and training and providing various forms of support, for instance, to the Libyan Coast Guard, but we think that it's crucial to really point out that there's also cooperation at the operational level as well. It's not enough to say that it's just funding these crimes, that European actors are also taking part as well. So yeah, those have been our kind of efforts to date, and one of the reasons that we've chosen this path of focusing on individual criminal responsibility, which is what is available at the International Criminal Court, is also precisely because it's been so hard to hold entities like Frontex to account. There are a lot of challenges in terms of identifying jurisdictions and ways in which to hold these different European actors to account for the crimes that are very clearly happening, but especially since kind of early victories that did happen at the European Court of Human Rights, for instance, in the Hirsi case. Since then, we've seen this kind of like change in behavior, this kind of orchestrated irresponsibility. Forgive me for forgetting the academic's name who coined that. But we've seen a lot of different changes in practice that have led to the situation where it's then very hard to pinpoint exactly who is responsible and to have a clear venue of where to take it. So from our perspective, international criminal accountability is one avenue to do that, and there are many other legal actors and activists working together to take legal approaches from other directions and in other fora as well. So we really see our work as part of that, and in our work we work together with survivors and survivor-led organizations such as Refugees in Libya, and for us that's an incredibly important part of it, that we use the law but always together with the people who it's directly impacting, and in a way that's also trying to achieve a form of justice that is also working in complement with the other aims, such as policy change.
Yes, thank you. So it's good to know there is such a thing as accountability. There is still justice we must aim for, even if in Europe so much injustice is happening. And the work that you're doing together with the collectives and the sea rescue organizations is, of course, is essential. And exactly on that, I would like to speak also now with you, Meta. You are a member of the civil fleet organization, and you are confronted on a daily basis in your work with such realities as the so-called Libyan Coast Guard, as Frontex, as Europe's regime towards refugees and migrants. What is your take? What has your experience been so far to make you go on in a kind of work that you are still in and still fighting in European regime that is supposed to be on our side, on the person's side, and not on the state side?
The situation we're witnessing in the Central Mediterranean Sea is directly linked to the situation in Libya that we are hearing about by refugees in Libya and by other actors. And we are witnessing how a complete disregard for international law in the Central Mediterranean Sea by state actors, such as Frontex, such as coastal states, as Malta and Italy, who are not responding to distress alerts, not forwarding information, unless to the so-called Libyan Coast Guard, who is pulling people back to Libya, to the horrific conditions in violation of the non refoulement principle and of international law in general. We are witnessing how these actors are funded by the European Union. Since 2017, Italy has donated at least 36 patrol vessels and to the so-called Libyan Coast Guard. In March this year, Humanity One was conducting a rescue operation, 3 boats in distress with approximately 100 people who had fled from Libya. And the so-called Libyan Coast Guard arrived and violently interrupted the ongoing rescue operation. And people fell and jumped into the water. It was a situation of panic. The so-called Libyan Coast Guard threatened with gun and fired a shot into the water where people were. And Humanity One was only able to rescue 77 people. An unknown number remained in the water, and an unknown number was taken back to Libya. According to the survivors on board Humanity One, at least 1 person drowned during this incident. The patrol vessel that interrupted and in this moment led to the death of at least 1 person was funded by the European Union and donated by Italy. And it's been one of at least 10 incidents that happened only this year that were reported about by the members of the civil fleet who were on scene. Many other incidents were not reported because no one was able to report about it. Same goes for all the shipwrecks that we don't know about. Since 2014, at least 30,500 people have died in the Central Mediterranean Sea. On average, 4 people are dying every day. And these are only the numbers we know about and the people we know about, not numbers. Each one is a person. And the people are dying, and we don't know about all of them because not every time is someone there to report about it. The European Union is continuing to equip and fund these actors and also forwarding information and enabling all these crimes against humanity, the vicious cycle of human rights violations at sea and in Libya. And they are spending 888 million euros for externalization policies, the EU and its member states, for outsourcing responsibility to Albania, that's a very new thing, by Italy, Libya and Tunisia. That's almost €1 billion that could be used to actually save people's lives, to protect the right to asylum in the EU and at Europe's external borders. And this is why we have to, I think we have to challenge the funding, and we have to hold state and state actors accountable, and this is how we have to work together, all of us.
Yeah, so exactly on this externalization policies we were talking about before, so back to the Tunisia and probably also with Egypt, some kind of let's say deal like that. Julian, you've been recently in Libya, if I'm not mistaken, and you've also been a part of serious organizations with Benta. And now you're part of the German state. What is your take on all this? I know it's hard to cross to get, but you got the word.
How much time do I have?
Let's go for 10 minutes and then we can think about it.
So, to start with, European politics is making the same mistake over and over again for at least 10 years now. If we look back to what, 2013, 2014 started practically was that Libya, that the northern African countries somehow became the focus of migration politics. It was all this funding, all this involvement in these countries was happening under the expectations that it would be possible to keep people away from fleeing, from escaping war and terror and conflict. And to make this short, it didn't work out. What happened instead was that people from that were about to depart from Libya took another migration route to the Canary Islands. When the deal with Turkey was closed, people changed their route to Libya. So migration is a complex system, and living under the fantasy that that funding and Coast Guard ships and Frontex and ICMPD and the other organizations would somehow make a system work where people would not flee. Not speaking about resolving the conflict, the initial reasons why people are on the move, is something completely absurd, and in particular if we look on how much money is spent on such a system. I changed sides, obviously. This is at least how I look at it, even before I ran as a candidate for the parliament. Because before I was openly criticizing politicians and politics, it feels for me to be on the other side, but to somehow bring what is important to me to the table, what has been important before and to me and also to many other people. And even though the current debate, without a doubt, is, to put it mildly, it's challenging, also for me. It's really something that is sometimes really hard to comprehend and to even follow the pace of the debate. What we need to acknowledge collectively is that migration cannot be controlled in a way that governments expect it to be controlled and governed, because it will not work. If we want less people on the move, which I would say should be a goal of global politics and German and European politics in particular, it should be that we need to resolve conflicts. But if people have to move, most of them want to remain in an area that's close to the area from where, or the area that they had to leave. And this is right now a complete blind spot in European politics. I'm actually very grateful for you, Allison, to working on holding the European institutions accountable, maybe even states if possible, because I think this is something that is most of the time happening under the radar, but I know how much time you and other organizations are putting into this and trying to challenge the practices. What we're at least trying to do is to impose harsher controls on Frontex, on the funding that Frontex is using, and that they at least, and I mean this is not something, not an extreme demand, that they are simply following the rules that are put on them. And we have regulations that say Frontex has an obligation to rescue. There is no excuse, never. but they manage to find a workaround most of the time. When Frontex drones are flying over the Mediterranean, they only, in a very few cases, report the distress cases to the boats in vicinity. And vicinity is something like 50 nautical miles in radius, so that's roughly 100 kilometers, 80 kilometers. And they barely do this. At least through politically challenging the new director of Frontex and challenging their funding, at least they're changing this practice. Slowly, but it's helping at least a very little bit. And because the European Union has its, at least from the perspective of the Commission, its difficulties to provide boats and aid to Libya directly, they're channeling this funding through Italy. And this is something that I have to pass on to my colleagues in the European Parliament, but following the money in this case as well, through the ETF, the European Trust Fund, what's called the Indiki instrument, something very technical, something very well hidden somewhere in the paperwork, but a fund that is channeling millions and millions of money to European countries, neighboring countries, institutions somewhere, is something we need to look into more closely where possible, but we always rely on first-hand accounts from the organizations to actually know what is going on. We rely on organizations like the ECCHR, and we rely on testimonies that we've seen on screen and people that sitting with us here up on stage. Because I want to admit this very openly, otherwise we would never be able to at least shed a bit of light onto what is happening inside this country. And when I was there, I was trying to meet with as many organizations, institutions. I actually met with the so-called Libyan Coast Guard, which was the strangest thing that I did in many years. I remember looking into the guns on the Mediterranean when I was on these rescue boats, and actually they were handing me something like a plate, and I don't know if they were making fun of me or if they just didn't Google me, but that was, I have the plate in my office as a reminder to this meeting. They are, from my impression, keen on getting more funding from the EU, and it is lying within their logic to be funded and to be upvalued in their existence through the cooperation with the European Union, and that is again putting a lot of pressure on people at the coast that are becoming victims of the so-called Coast Guard again, because they just they seek admission by anyone, and that was really something that was re-radicalizing for me.
I mean, you saw the situation in Libya. I believe also the detention centers. Maybe did you manage to get closer or to speak to migrants in Libya?
So I visited houses where people were living and were getting education, and had lots of time there, and that was again something that was moving to me, but I was not allowed in detention centers when I was there. I don't know why. It is also traveling with the German embassy. Maybe it was not helping, and the security protocol we had, but it's something I want to try a second time if they let me in again. I don't know.
Because I mean, you were there, you saw the situation from up close, and not so many German politicians or European politicians have the interest or the possibility to do that. So then, when you came back, using those insights and knowing the German system and the European one, do you believe that it is possible to find legal pathways, to find evacuation ways of getting people out of Libya as soon as possible within the current migration debate, within the current turn to the right, within the Brussels summit these days, where Charlotte was saying, yeah, we have to think of creating these detention centers outside the EU territory as soon as possible. We have to start thinking about them right now, not wait until 2026. Do you believe this can be possible? I mean, using your experience and your expertise in this field, what do you think?
I don't want to justify any of the political decisions that were made in the past 2 years. Honestly, also because I find most of them wrong in the very sense that they are designed to keep people away that are in the move. But there is one practice that I think is completely underexploited, and that is the instrument of resettlement. Even conservative politicians are speaking of what is called legal or a planned migration route. Okay, let's play with this logic. Let's accept it exists at least. But we have the instrument of resettlement through the United Nations, through the UNHCR. And I know that there is wrongdoing by the UNHCR in Lebanon, completely well-less. But we have this route, and I think it has to be promoted more on the European level. It has to be promoted more in the member states, because it has proven to be working. And Germany has pledged a few hundred places per year, I mean, which is for a dignified way to safety. It's somewhere close to a joke, but it's at least something that there is a number. But getting this number up and opening this channel should be something that can be a way to evacuate people from Libya. There are challenges because we cannot fly them out from Libya straight away. Tunisia is not working together with Libya and is not allowing people in. So there are certain challenges why people are now being evacuated through Rwanda by the UNHCR. But if there is a way to another country, to European soil and to safety, I would say this could at least be a workable option.
Thank you.
Thank you. David, you were recently in Rwanda, I think, up for this people being evacuated to Rwanda. How was the situation there in the camps? And I think you have had a close relation to the migrants and you have spoke with leaders, your office there too, so what is the situation there?
I think before I speak about the situation, he just touched upon something which I'm always standing up against, and I'm going to do it right here, which is UNHCR. If we look at Libya, I just mentioned in the beginning of my statement that there are more or less 800,000 refugees in Libya, but UNHCR has or is claiming to have registered about 60,000 of these people. And the ones that benefit from the services of UNHCR, at least until to this year, they have only managed to provide and visit 100 households, which means it's a family. So how could this mechanism prove useful? I have waited myself in Libya for 4 years. I was not recognized as a refugee with this so-called UNHCR mechanism. Well, in Chad, I was already a refugee with the same identity. When I came, I had to undergo the same zero process again. How much long the life of these people can be postponed? I'm glad they took you to visit where people are having education, but we have people here working with us on the hotline, which operates 24/7 to provide assistance to people. None of the people, even from my experience, receive education in Libya through either UNHCR, IOM, or the existing mechanism or entities that German embassy may be able to provide. This is not happening. Looking again at UNHCR with the mechanism such as Rwanda, such as Niger. Niger is now on hold since the coup d'etat. But looking at this year alone, since January until now, less than 300 people have been resettled out of Libya using these legal means. But when we look at those concentration camps, there is something which is not right. Over 30,000 people are incarcerated as I am speaking inside those detention facilities, which is immediately financed by the EU actors. So who is the master here? If I'm paying you to construct a house and keep people inside, how can I not have the authority to come and access this facility? And this is just for the next visit that you go. It's really hard for me to understand where the hypocrisy lies or where the power balance is. And in regard to the mechanisms such as Rwanda, yes, I followed those people because when I was in Libya, I was hoping to get out to any other country, be it Rwanda, be it Niger. It was a point and a search for safety. But then we started to protest since the attack on our homes in Kilgalej in 2021. I was among the very first people to advocate and say we need evacuation. And these people, likely they got evacuated, some of us, to Rwanda and to Niger. 2 years later, I had to follow them to understand the places that I am advocating for them to be relocated to. What does it look like? But in reality, it's another hell for them. We have plenty of video here that we recorded, but if you want to see, we will show it on the screen there. The testimonies there are horrible. The mechanism that have been used with UNHCR, even though it has been able to provide safety to a very few number of people, it's an outsourcing of border. UNHCR, as I mentioned earlier, does not work in my interest, except when it is pushing for the agenda, when it is pushing what the EU tells it to do. When we confront UNHCR in Geneva, in New York, at all those headquarters, they tell us we don't have any mandate, we don't have any authority. Our resources, our finances is coming from the EU actors. And they have to dictate who has to come to Germany, who has to come to Italy, under what condition, and the most sad part is how long does the process take? Children are born and they are 18, 20. They are, by the nature of that circumstance, made to become illiterate because they don't have the right to study. In Libya, no one is studying. I don't know. I will have to do my research again. Maybe I will send my spirit to Libya. That is for Rwanda and for Niger. Likewise, we have many voices now coming from Niger. Since the coup d'etat, the EU and the UNHCR completely look away. We don't operate with dictators. But who are these dictators? It is their own mechanisms that are putting these people in this spot. Where now the lives of the common people is being affected. I can go on and go on and go on. But before I give back the mic, you mentioned the mechanism that the EU have been repeating and making the same mistakes for the last 10 years by looking at the deals with the Turkey, and then people started to shift where we see thousands of people coming to Libya and then in other countries. Now we're looking at Tunisia since the last 2 years. It's a disaster. And this disaster, I don't call it a mistake. It's an intentional mechanism which is being put in place, combined with institutional racism and languages that I don't know how to use it here, which does not want to see me as a human being. And this is those pictures there. Thousands of women, the ones who are being raped now by the Tunisian National Police, who benefit directly from the European funds. Who is responsible for this? Those children who are born without their parents, who is responsible for this? The young men, if you will afterward have to look at those pictures, their lips are cut, their heads are torn apart by machete wounds. If we put this into critical thinking, is it really a mistake? No. Is it really a topic of racism? I don't think so. Because if we're talking about racism, don't destroy my home where I live. Don't destroy the place where my parents are. For this, I will not be forced to come and knock on your door. This constant knock on your doors is a disease that you created, and we must feel and find the cure within the EU. This is for me as someone who had to migrate and leave my parents, all my families away. It is the same for those who are now either in Turkey, either in Libya, either in Tunisia or Morocco or Algeria.
Yes, I wanted to add something. Thank you, David, also for bringing up Tunisia. And I think we should also look at Germany when talking about Tunisia and the role of Germany, because the German Federal Police and GIZ, the German Development Agency, are directly taking part in training the Tunisian National Guard, who is committing these crimes that David just reported about, and also to develop the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, which is now officially responsible and recognized by the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, since this year. And thus the same model that has been done with Libya to enable all these interceptions and these violations of the non-refoulement principle are now, this model is being replicated with Tunisia. And I think it's very important also to look at the role of Germany in this, and this would also be my question to you, Julian, on how these, even though these crimes have been now, even by the UN spoke up in the beginning of this week about the crimes being committed in Tunisia as well. How can Germany still take part in this with direct funding and direct also involvement of the German Bundespolizei and GIZ?
Let me have a look on it. I know that the German Federal Police is there to the ICMPD. This is why I'm mentioning them, and I'm not hiding it and addressing it publicly. That I find this extremely difficult for them to be deployed there under such a program, and that I think it's a 10 million funding for the ICMPD, if I'm not wrong, to which the ICMPD is funding the Tunisian police. So I'm questioning this organization as a whole, because they are involved in different practices, and I think cooperation with the ICMPD and with this with such state actors is something that should not take place, even though I'm not quite sure of how much they are involved in building up an MRCC, but if you have details, send them over.
Yes, I think it's very important to have this kind of conversation through level with each other, because Germany is a country that has experienced both discrimination as migration, and it's a country that is supposed to support human rights and do its best in sustaining them at all costs. So it's important for people living in Germany or German citizens to know where their money is going, and it's a part of which struggle against whom, because migrants are not enemies, on the contrary. If any of you has something else to add, reaction, comments to the discussion ongoing, I would like to ask you to do it now. Allison, would you like to add something?
I think David responded to a lot of the points that I would also want to respond to, but I just want to pick up on that. I'm incredibly disturbed, perhaps not shocked, but disturbed by your visit to the Libyan Coast Guard, and I think, yes, of course, they are happy and invested in continuing to receive money from European sources. I think that gives them a lot of both financial as well as political incentive to continue this process of interceptions and returns. And we can't forget that feeds into an entire system where they profit on both sides. So there is profit that is happening between collaboration happening between Libyan militia members and members of the Libyan Coast Guard and the detention centers, where people are not actually let out, except under conditions of extortion. So they pay on the one hand to get out, even have an attempt at sea, and then they are intercepted and brought back again. So I don't know, for me, this is one area where I see legal accountability as one of the only ways that can possibly make politicians who, as you said, have been making the same mistake now for the last 10 years in continuing to create these deals, first with Turkey, then with Libya, and now with Tunisia, So for me, this is even more evidence that we need to keep pursuing this path. And I would love to know from you if there are specific kind of reactions that you had to that, and what you think your role from the political perspective would be to actually use this relationship in a way to change the situation.
So, I don't know if you were wondering why I visited them, if I got that correctly, but that was something I really wanted to do. And I'm not conspicuous that I would collaborate with such criminals that I have witnessed on the Mediterranean a number of times, and I've seen to what they are capable of. So, because most of the funding is coming from the European Union, it's something we try to get a better insight on the European level. Where's the money going to? How is this working? Why are they even being funded? It's something I cannot do on a state level because this is done somewhere else. What we need to stop is from national level the education of this Coast Guard. We had a mandate of the German Marine in which the education and training of the so-called Coast Guard was a part of. And in, I think it was winter 2021, 2022, January somewhere, we passed the mandate in the German parliament for the first time without the education and training for the so-called Coast Guard, because we raised this issue to the ministry and made sure they are not being trained by the German military. That is part of a military mission in the Mediterranean, and this is at least something that we can do on a state level. But our arm is not that long that we can reach into Italy or Malta or somewhere else, and this is where we're certainly, or I am definitely reaching a glass ceiling that I cannot break that easily.
How about the mandate, the EU mandate, since it's still part of the EU mandate, the training of the so-called Libyan Coast Guard? Will Germany advocate within the EU to take it out of the mandate?
Yes, that's what we're doing, exactly. But we need a decision by the majority of the European states, and we are not the majority, and this is why it's still in. But the position of Germany is to have the European mandate according to the German mandate, yes.
Yes, David?
If I make my many questions, I will start with either proposal or an invitation to act. Before that, I think I have to make clarification between what you say as one of the resettlement mechanisms being underexploited. This mechanism, I don't think it applies for the people, at least for this category of human rights defenders that we have been advocating for. First of all, they spent 3 months and 10 days in front of the UNHCR. The UNHCR called the militias on us, they shot at us. My colleague was shot on the field in my presence. And after that, the UNHCR abandoned them in the detention of Nzara for 18 months. After they were released, they also abandoned them. They cannot access the gate of the UNHCR without being taken to police station. And this police station is not something that functions under a regulated, authority. It's entities of militias and mafia that are immediately called, that call themselves the security apparatus, and these people are persecuted on everyday basis. That being said, we initiated this campaign to recognize them as human rights defenders. What are the existing mechanisms in Germany when it comes to human rights defenders around the world? Is there any? And if it's not there, how can we create it? And now that you have managed to visit Libya, and also there is the German consulate, how possible is it for the German consulate in Tripoli to meet with our human rights defenders, to understand what they are experiencing? And can these people go to the German consulate to ask for asylum inside? Because you said to evacuate them directly from Libya is not quite possible. But is this also an option? Can they go there to ask for asylum? And okay.
Okay, let me start at the beginning with UNHCR. When this huge protest was happening in Tripoli in front of the UNHCR, the old UNHCR building, for their practices, there was a coincidence, we had Filippo Grandi in Berlin. We met with him, and we met with a couple of UNHCR officials, and we're having a pretty long debate exactly about this case, because many people saw what was going wrong in these days and weeks while the protests were there, while the camp was being removed. This is why I've said before that also this agency has a history and has or had a practice of wrongdoing that I cannot deny. Because we have so little ways outside of Libya to evacuate people. With so little ways. I think we need a certain creativity to find ways to evacuate people from this country, because it is such a horrible dead end where people end up in detention centers and in everything you've described. And UNHCR resettlement is at least a scheme that we have. It's not perfect, and I'm not saying that, I never did, but it is something that we have, and it is something where I would at least like to see that this is being put to work. And if we need more UNHCR stuff, well, then we need to find a way to have more UNHCR stuff in Libya. The agency is lacking funding, yes, without a doubt. Then we need to find a way for more funding, yes, absolutely. I don't know where it should be coming from. If we look at the US election in a month's time, my fear is that the United States are cutting their funding to the UNHCR again. And then it has to be filled up again by other states. That's a problem, and it's a problem we need to work with, to which I do not have the perfect solution. For the German consulate, I cannot speak on behalf of the ministry, at least from what I know. It is, when I was there, there were very few personnel from the German consulate in Libya for the very first time since years, under a very high security protocol, which is making their life not easier. And I don't know if there are plans to open a visa section sometimes in the future, but that could be a possible way. But I would, it would be a mistake to make any promises, because that's not my decision, and many factors play into account there, also security-wise. So this is, I don't know, ask me in a year again, and maybe something changed by that time, but I'm having the same question, and there was also something I was discussing with the ambassador a lot, if it would be possible to open a visa section, because obviously that would be at least another way, something small, something to hold on to.
Okay. I don't want to be the only one, but it seems quite a huge debate. As again, I feel we are still on the same ground. A follow-up question would be, does Germany stand for human rights? And does Germany as a country recognize human rights defenders anywhere in the world? If so, why not just these people, these particular people we're speaking about?
for me, as a German, I'm not responsible for what my grandparents did and their generation, but I'm responsible for.
No, don't say that.
But I'm responsible for defending the consequences.
You're benefiting from what your grandparents did. You're a
So
beneficiary yourself as well.
I'm not problem following, but whatever. I'm responsible for defending the consequences that were derived from the horrors that were coming from this country. And one of these consequences is, there are many. One of them is the European Convention on Human Rights. We're trying to implement programs to protect human rights defenders that are protecting fundamental rights, even though that's difficult in some country contexts, in particular in Libya, because I mean there's very little structure that you can turn to. And when I was there, I met organizations that are working on this and are also trying to protect others that are being pressured. It's fairly difficult, but yes, that's hopefully a common German priority to defend human rights.
Thank you so much. I will ask you in the backyard. So
For now. At this point, I would say we can open discussion to the audience. We can interact with any of our guests. Wow, lots of people. You take your pick.
Where?
Choose.
And I think we also have a translator for the questions. So if someone is asking something in Arabic, please let us know that the translator is coming and is making the translation in the microphone. Should I start here?
Yeah, thank you very much, David Yambo. Africa is proud of you. And I'm connecting to the struggles that I have been here. And I hear you as a politician saying 10 years of recognizing about the situation in Libya. But I want to talk about the political amnesia that Germany has, because it's not 10 years, 12 years ago we were in Oplatz. I think this situation is only changed with years. And then in Oplatz we had the Lampedusa situation, which was more or less the same. So it's different times with different key players. And that's why I'm talking about the political amnesia. And sometimes I listen to politicians and you spend almost half an hour saying nothing because you don't come up with solutions. You're the people representing these problems. And what is now constantly happening is that politically, the problem has become migration, as if migration is the only problem Europe has. We have nothing to do with your low birth rate. We have nothing to do with your aging demography. We have nothing to do with the war in Ukraine that has skyrocketed prices. We have nothing to do with everything that is happening in Europe. But migration becomes the only topic, whether it is the left, right, or the center, unify on. And that is disgusting. Now we have the EU Pact, we have the externalized borders, so the increase of, and he's asking if you believe in human rights. And this is exactly what now is continuing. The externalized borders where enormous issues on human rights will now again be the topic. So I'm just trying to emphasize on what David is talking about.
Leider kann ich nicht auf Englisch sprechen, wenn jemand übersetzen kann, weil mein Englisch ist nicht reicht.
Okay, I can translate this.
Ich will auf die Tatsache, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, dass wir leider auf UNHCR uns stützen müssen, damit es besser ist. Und das Einzige, was wir brauchen, ist diese UNHCR Resettlement. Ich will darauf antworten.
Okay. Sigrun, can you maybe do that with the translation? Because we don't.
I can do that. She's saying that she was understanding from what I think many Julian said, that even though they're not perfect, that in UNHCR, I can't say that, but that organization that I can't name, that is our only option, and we have to kind of improve it, and we should rely as a realpolitik solution on the settlement thing. And you want to comment on that, right?
Wir haben also erstmal vor 1,5 Jahren gab es sehr viele Frauen am Sudan und Südsudan, die vor die UNHCR-Gebäude gekämpft haben mit ihren Kindern, fast alle Frauen allein mit Kindern. Die sind nach weiß nicht wie viel Zeit einfach auch mit Polizei und Milizia einfach weggebracht worden. Viele sind auf der Straße immer noch, also ich habe Kontakt zu diesen Leuten in Libyen. Die sind auf der Straße, die sind allein. UNHCR lässt die Frauen nicht mal reingehen, damit sie ihre Registrierung verlängern können.
Okay, so this is a situation where she has first-hand contact to women and children who also protested, and they have been recognized at all by UNHCR, and they're not even allowed to enter to register as refugees. And what happened as a consequence is that they are homeless, they live on the streets, and they have basically no help at all, not even the lowest level of what you would call humanitarian help.
Also die haben nicht protestiert, die hatten
Die
hatten keinen Platz zu gehen. Es gab so eine Welle aus Sudan, logischerweise, wegen des
Women
Krieges.
from Sudan, that's what I mean, sorry.
Okay, und das Zweite, hier wurde auch über Niger gesprochen. Wir haben Kontakte zu den sogenannten Humanitarian Center in Agadez, finanziert von Italien und EU und organisiert von UNHCR. Ich habe Fotos, schreckliche Fotos. Mehr als 1200 Leute leben dort, Familien mit Kleinkindern. Die haben nichts, die haben kein Wasser in ihren Unterkünften, wenn man die Unterkünfte so nennen kann. Die protestieren, das ist schon das 3. Mal seit Mai 2020, dass sie protestieren. Das erste Mal ist ein Mensch gestorben. Die anderen beiden Male ist nichts passiert, die protestieren jetzt weiterhin. Das ist das Resettlement. Sudanesische Menschen in einem Transitcamp, weil diese Humanitarian Center sollte ein Transitcamp sein, die sind dort seit Jahren.
So what's framed as resettlement proves that's another example from Niger, and it's actually another terrible detention place where families and people are spending like 3 years now, and she's been there, and the first-hand knowledge shows this is really not. This can't be a solution. This is what I hear from you saying, and there's more than 1,200 people detained in one place that is named a humanitarian center, but it's actually the opposite, and they're there since May 2020.
Also ich war nicht da, aber wir haben Kontakte und wir bekommen Videos und Fotos. Nein, es ist schwierig zu übersetzen, das weiß ich. Aber das ist die Situation von was UNHCR macht.
If you wish to react or respond, it's fine. Sure.
I just have 2 questions to the members of the Parliament of Germany. My first question is the German government aware of the war in Sudan? I know there's a war in Palestine and Ukraine. Is the German government also aware of the war in Sudan? Question number 2 is Germany goings to work or to stop European Union, because Germany is one of the European Union countries. Is Germany also going to stop European Union from funding Libyan Coast Guard, which they say it is official, but we know it is a piracy, or they are pirates, because pirates are people who are hooking up boat or ship in the sea. So I've been in Libya for 5 years. I know what's going on there. So will Germany also stop European Union from funding Libyan Coast Guard? Thank you.
First, yes, of course we are aware of the situation in Sudan, of course. I mean, how can you look away? We cannot stop the war. That's also part of the truth. But what's being done, at least to what I know, I cannot give you the full picture right now because I'm not that deep into where the help is going right now. But there are somewhere in the 2 or 3 million figure humanitarian help is going into Sudan. Organizations have been kicked out of some regions where it was difficult to cooperate with state actors, but they're trying to fund help where possible, and also in the neighboring countries where people are moving to and seeking safety. And this is, at least for now, a contribution. And for the Libyan Coast Guard on the European level, well, I'm not speaking for the German government, but the German government will not have the competence. It's a decision by the Parliament and the Commission. If the Parliament is stopping the budget for the so-called Libyan Coast Guard through whatever means the money is being funded, that would be a way, yes, and for the Commission. But as a member state, fairly difficult.
Thank you for your question, and I think it's very important to talk about how Europe is dealing with Ukrainian refugees, and also how different it is, because it shows that if there's a political will, there is a way. Europe was ready to welcome and managed to welcome 4.2 million Ukrainian refugees as of November 2023, and activated the temporary protection mechanism, which includes the freedom of movement within the EU, the access to the labor market, to housing, medical assistance, education, and so on. While at the same time, the access to the human right to asylum for people from other countries is increasingly restricted. And I think we have to look at this and where it comes from, and who is actually being restricted to enter Europe. And it's racialized people on the move. And I think it's very important also when we talk about the current migration narrative, when we hear all this talk about there's too many people coming and all of this, when right now in Italy the arrivals by sea have been about 50,000 people. So it's not a question of numbers, it's a question of political will.
Another question? Yes, please. Yes.
Hello everybody. مساء الخير وشكرا يميم لهذه الفرصة. شكرا نعيمة. طبعا أنا حاليا في عمري أنا مريت بكل أنواع الحروب. أنا مواليد حرب دارفور، مواليد 2000. أنا مريت بحرب دارفور، مريت بصحراء الكبرى، مريت بشاد، مريت ببني وليد، مريت بسبيل ليبيا، مريت ببحر ليبيا، مريت بنيجر، مريت بكل حاجة.
Hello everybody, and good evening. Thank you David and Naima for organizing this. I am a born of wars. I have been experiencing wars all my life. I have been in that war since 2003, and I crossed the Grand Desert from Sudan to Libya and Beni Walid.
صحراء الكبرى جاد
Yes.
بني وليد سجون بني وليد.
Yes, Beni Walid, prisons.
البحر وسجون ليبيا في طرابلس ونيجر درجة حرارة نيجر.
Yes, and also I experienced the heat in Niger and the prisons in Libya.
أريد أن أوصل الصوت لكل السودانيين، أريد أوصل صوتي للموجودين في السجون بتاعت ليبيا، أريد أوصل صوت لكل الموجودين حاليا في كامب أجاديس في كامب بتاع نيجر.
I want to send this message to all those in the detention center, especially in Agadez in Niger.
وسجون ليبيا.
And Libya prisons.
بالنسبة لسجون ليبيا كويس، بالنسبة إنه أنا جاي من البحر، إنه إحنا اللي شددنا إن السفن الأوروبية اللي هي دعمت أوروبا لليبيا كويس، بإنه دارين نوقف إنه الحاجة دي إنه لازم نوقفها تمام. والحاجة الثانية إنه اللاجئين اللي قاعدين في نيجر إنه دارين نفتح أبواب ثانية لألمانيا لكل الاتحاد الأوروبي إنها تساعد إنه تنقذ اللاجئين الموجودين في ليبيا الموجودين في نيجر.
Yes, I crossed the Mediterranean, and I want to just to say that we need to open new routes for those who are in Niger and in Libya.
وعندي سؤال طبعا بخصوص الحكومة الألمانية إنها رجعت 300 ملف من نيجر في السنة دي، رجعت ملف.
My question is for the German government. They rejected around 300 file or dossier from people who are applied in Niger.
بعد انتظار سنتين في درجة حرارة 50.
After waiting for 2 years in 50 degrees centigrade or Fahrenheit.
50 درجة مئوية فahrenheit من غير كهرباء.
Yeah, they were waiting for 2 years in this heat in Niger, 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
في أمل إنهم هم عايزين يفتحوا ممرات آمنة لكل الناس، بيرجعوا تاني بيرجعوا الملفات بعد ما وصلوا ليبيا، يرجعوا تاني يرجعوا الملفات.
Yeah, and after they reach Libya, they return them back. They push them back to Niger.
Can I just make it clear? What she meant here is the people who are evacuated from Libya through the emergency transit mechanism. Most of them have been abandoned in Niger, in those camps, and Germany as a country offers this mechanism to UNHCR and say we will resettle these people, but they keep rejecting their files. And I can testify. A month ago, I was in Rwanda, and the people are experiencing the same. Most of their files are being rejected. Under what criteria that the German government receives these people is a huge question to most of us. To come to Germany under the resettlement procedure of UNHCR is just not as easy as it can be.
Okay.
Yes.
I have to admit I'm not familiar enough with the situation that you're describing and the rejection of these cases. But whoever has now you're hearing. Okay, should I say again? Okay. I have to admit I'm not familiar enough with these cases. Through the resettlement scheme through UNHCR, if you have anyone has more details on this, send them over. I will not make any promises, but let me look into it and let me see what I can do. This is the least, at least, what I can do as an MP.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm a Berlin-based activist. I wanted to thank you, or most of you, for the discussions and for your insights. And I have, however, questions regarding. Phone is not working? No. Regarding German politics, I was wondering how you can sit here as a member of the parliament, as a member of the Green Party, when just today you passed the so-called security package that lines up with countless laws of racist and refugee hostile rules, and have been passed by, amongst others, the Green Parliament Party. And when your government, your Green Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is continuing to fund the so-called Libyan Coast Guard, when you legitimize the Libyan Coast Guard by visiting them as a member of parliament, and the same with the Tunisian government, making the lives of the civil fleet hard in order to kill refugees. I was wondering, how can you sleep at night, and how can we now expect you to change sides once more and leave the German or the Green Party in Germany as soon as you leave this podium? Because I'm ashamed, and I think I can speak for a lot of people here. I'm ashamed by your answers. I'm angry.
I cannot change your anger. It's absolutely fair, because the package that was passed today was something that I was fighting for the past weeks, openly in the public, behind closed doors. It's something I don't want to give up, I think there have to be a few people in the parliament that share a view on how to treat people on the move, and that raise issues that others don't raise, and that's difficult. That's difficult to the public. That's difficult in the decisions that are being made, and still I don't want to give up on this, because who else would be then in this parliament, from whatever party?
Thank you. Yes. Another question? No one? Yeah, please, why not? Okay. You got the mic already, so please move to it.
My question is twofold. I will say it in Arabic and then السؤال يبدأ من شقين. الشق الأول، كيف يعني الحكومة الألمانية والاتحاد الأوروبي بشكل عام بيتعامل مع الهجرة بعيد أو بفصيلة عن الاقتصاد بتاع التبعية وعن النهب وسرقة موارد الدول الفقيرة، يعني هي مش فقيرة في الحقيقة، سرقة موارد الدول الأفريقية. الشق الثاني إنه كيف وفقا للمعايير الأوروبية، حتى وفقا للمعايير الأوروبية، كيف بيعتبروا تونس أو رواندا، هي كلها أنظمة ديكتاتورية، كيف الدول دي بتعتبر يعني دول آمنة يرجعوا لها الناس؟ Okay. My question is, the European policy regarding migration and people on the move, it totally neglects the root causes of this fleeing. It is not people, they don't want to come to Europe because they like snow and cold weather. It is really connected to this policy of exploitation of the African countries and taking the resources of the African countries away, and also keeping these dependent economies working in this phase which is called new colonialism. I don't like that term which is post-colonialism. Colonialism is still there. So post-colonialism is just a manipulative term. So those are inseparable things. So you cannot just separate the exploitation and dependent economy, which Europe and the UA and the West in general are preserving there in Africa, creating wars, appointing dictators. Those are inseparable. These things are the root causes of migration. If you don't want people to come here, to stop exploiting the resources, to stop appointing dictators. My other question, or my other comment also is related to this somehow. How could it be considered, even according to European values and standards, that a dictatorship country or a dictatorship regimes like Tunisia, like Rwanda, Kagame, like Algeria, like Chad, like Eritrea, how could it be considered as safe countries according to European democracy values?
I'm part of the German parliament, and
that is why I want to.
And not of the European. So this is, I mean, I can only assume to which deals you're referring to, no, there are certainly deals with dictators and regimes and political systems that I find wrong. Of course, I do. For your first questions on let me describe it as the colonial, post-colonial influence of European countries on the African continent. Yes, that's a very dark practice that European countries are having there. Absolutely. It's something that we definitely need to get better. It's something that the French need to work on. It's everywhere. And with European money, and this is, we were speaking about the funds, something that I just sometimes have problems to compare that a system, for example, like the ECOWAS system is being destroyed with European money, and European policymakers are then wondering why people are moving out of these countries for conflict reasons and others, are not, policymakers are not even questioning this practice. I'm not getting behind this logic, to just name an example.
Okay, we should be approaching the end. Yes. Who else would like to ask a question?
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah, so just a brief comment and then 2 questions. As a Libyan, I'm so horrified with what I saw and what I heard. And but I'm not shocked at all because I have personally witnessed these behaviors, these actions. I have personally saw this and covered this as a journalist. And I got to say, like from my point of view as a Libyan, I don't think that, well, the media, the local media in Libya and the politicians deliberately misinform the population in Libya and even just like not cover this topic and not talk about it, the reality of it, the horror that our brothers and sisters face in these detention camps. And for that, the Libyan people really doesn't really know much about it, and the voices my colleagues, the people I know, like either journalists or activists who are talking about this, the whistleblowers. Even I have like sources from people who are working in the ECCHR, who are Libyans. They will tell me how hard it is for refugees to register, and then after they register, like it's totally like whatever, like all the testimonies are real, because like this is what I saw from their work, like from their aspect, from their perspective. It's like even after you register, you really don't get any like much aid, and also you know that they were actually being harassed by the militias there to enter the detention camps. So like it's the process itself is not working, or is really hard and really slow. For that, I came to a conclusion that, well, because it's funded by the EU, because of also the Coast Guard is funded by the EU, simply the European states, the European countries, the politicians, no shade, but the politicians, they really simply don't care. Like they don't care about African lives. And they rather talk about the problem in Libya, an African country, blame that, but not really hold it accountable, because if they do, they will be also exposed. So like they're just playing a shady game. So for me right now, my efforts and my hopes, if there's any hope left for me, just to like to really focus our efforts on mobilizing people, but not like just in Europe, because what I see is like focusing on Europeans, white people, for sympathy, for like action, but I really do want a lot of efforts focused like towards and being targeted like the people in Africa, the populations in Africa, the countries in Africa themselves, to actually be aware, to mobilize, to organize against these actions, because at the end of the day it's happening in their countries. And this is my question, did you contact any activists in Libya or any media, local media, to cover this? Have you talked to people like also in Rwanda, and how did that go, if you did? And the second question is about the legal, because you mentioned about legal actions. How long does it take as well? Because we know it takes a lot of time. And even if you have a good result from that, what's the next step? What are they going to do to solve these problems? And thank you.
So your question is directed towards Julian?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Allison? Yes.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the comment as well as the questions. With respect to whether we're in touch with people on the ground in Libya, the answer is, or we have been, the answer is yes, and then also no. We are in touch with people who work in civil society organizations, especially human rights organizations on the ground there, but there's also been, for the past few years, a really heavy repressive campaign against civil society in Libya. So that also means that our contact with them has become increasingly difficult, and we tend to work on our casework predominantly with people who have made it to Europe and are in positions of relative safety in that respect, because as the second part of your question just gestured to, these legal cases can take a very, very long time. So it's really crucial and important that we stay in touch with people on the ground in Libya, and we do that, and including together with David Yambio and refugees in Libya. And we are in touch with Libyan civil society organizations who are struggling right now there as well. And then yes, from the flip side, these legal cases that we're talking about actually trying to hold the European actors to account, yes, of course they take a long time. There's also law is not separate from politics, and there's not, we're also working against a lot of political will to take those cases as well. And they can take a long time, but for instance, there's not yet been a case at the ICC that actually deals with crimes against migrants and refugees, but we hope that there will be, there still can be. So we're putting a lot of effort into trying to push that there, and the more awareness and pressure that comes from all different sides and voices, we hope can only help in that respect. So especially the kind of legal work that we do is really like a long-term kind of struggle, and on one sense it always comes too late, because we're taking action in response to violations that have already occurred. And that's something really difficult to do, but then we're all involved in this long struggle, so we see that as a very important piece to try to make a change as well. I feel like David wanted to say something too?
I will meet him afterward. I think Nadia sitting next to him has a question. I comment.
أنا داير أتكلم. أنا كلامي قصير شوية، بس أول شيء داير أشكر ديفن لأنه صراحة كان حتى في ليبيا بيساعدنا كتير، بيعرض حياته لخطر بمواقف كتيرة وبيساعدنا. عشان كده أنا داير أشكره شديد. حتى لما أنا وصلت في أوروبا. تمام.
My comment is short. First, I want to thank David because when we were in Libya, he was helping a lot and he puts himself into too much dangers just to help us.
حتى لما وصلت على أوروبا أنا شخصيا كان بيتابع معي كتير وكان يعني أخ وسند. حابة أشكره. غير كده في حاجة حاليا أنا انصدمت إنه قافر سواحل الليبية بيدعموهم المتحدة عشان إنه بيساعدوهم، يعني بيساعدوهم، هم اللي بيدربوهم. واللي حصل فينا في ليبيا دي كلها تعرفين إنه في ناس بيدربوهم، يعني كان ما شاء الله يعني كانوا بيضربوا السفينة جوا البحر كويس ومدربين، يعني كانوا بيقتلوا في الناس
And even after I reached here in Europe, David was always with me, helping me and doing his best. I have been shocked when I knew that the Libyan Coast Guard is being funded and trained by the EU because they were intercepting people in the Mediterranean and killing them also. Basically training.
هو الاتحاد الأوروبي هو قاعد يساعدنا صراحة، بس قاعدين يضرونا بطريقة غير مباشرة. هم ما عارفين ما بعرف، بس ضرونا كتير، بيكونوا يساعدوا خافر سواحل ليبيا، بيدفعوا لهم ويدربوهم. هذا الشيء ضرر كبير لنا نحن كلاجئين كنا في ليبيا.
The European Union caused us a lot of damage by helping the Libyan Coast Guard because the Libyan Coast Guard committed many crimes and we have been severely.
حاليا عندنا ناس في ليبيا، عندي أشخاص كتير بيعرفهم حاليا في السجون، وفي أشخاص ماتوا مجهولين ما معروفين لحد الآن وين قاعدين مفقودين. أشخاص اللي كنا طلعنا من قرقارش دايما كان معانا بيعرف الكلام ده.
I know people in Libya, some are in prisons and the others are just disappeared and we don't know where are they.
أنا حاليا إذا فيني أوصل فيش مثلا من الاتحاد الأوروبي شخص بيسمع كلامي ولا البرلمان الألماني بيسمع كلامي، انتوا دريتونا بطريقة، انتوا حال فهمانين هذا الشيء ولا ما فهمانين ما بعرف، بس دريتونا صراحة بكونكم تساعدوا خفر السواحل الليبية.
If there is anybody here from the European Union or the German Parliament, I just want to tell them you caused us a lot of harm.
30,000 شخص اللي قلتوا بموتوا سنويا. انتوا خافر السواحل الليبية اللي بتساعدوا فيهم صراحة انتوا المسؤولين.
The 30,000 persons who yearly losing their life in the middle of Mediterranean, they are being killed by the European Union and the Libyan Coast Guard.
احنا بشر ومن حقنا بنعيش، من حقنا نعيش زي ما كل العالم، من حقنا نعيش، يعني ما يشوفوا مواضيع بتاع اوكرانيا ويشوفوا مواضيع تانية بينسونا. نحن كأفارقة قاعدين في ليبيا ولا قاعدين في نيجر ولا قاعدين في اي مكان، بينسوا الحاجة الحالية. هم حتى حصلت في تونس بغض النظر بيتكلموا يومين. انا حاليا قاعدة فرحانة اللي حاصل قدامي كل شيء، بس ما قادرة اصدق، يعني ما بعرف، ما بقدر اشوف انه حيصير في نتيجة ولا في احد حيوقفهم ولا، لان انا كل مرة بسمع وما شفت نتيجة اصلا.
يصدق إنه أنتم كلكم هيك الكلام، بحس إنه في عدالة، إنه أي شخص يتحاسب، بحس إنه في عدالة وفي شخص، أي شخص مجرم يتحاسب. لكن بحس إنه بحس إنه في عدالة وفي أي شخص مجرم يتحاسب، والطريقة اللي تتكلموا فيه والكلام اللي بسمعه بحس إنه هيصير حاجة كويسة. لكن كيف أوثق فيكم؟ لأنه كل السياسيين بيتكلموا لكن ما بينفذوا، يعني معروف. بس أنا بتمنى حاليا قاعد تقولوها هنا يكون حقيقة وتساعدوا الناس جد، والناس المجرمين يتحاسبوا، والبرلمان ياخذ قرار جد تجاه الناس ديل اللي كل يوم بيموتوا.
Also, we are human, we have the right to live, but here we're experiencing like a kind of discrimination between us and between the Ukrainian people. And also, when I hear you and I see like these events, it brings joy. It brings joy to my heart that I lost hope and I don't know how can I trust all the politicians and all of you anymore. That's what she said.
We actually should be ending our panel. If there's a last question, we can end it because William also has to go as if right now. You have to already.
One last question? Yes.
Pass.
Yeah. Before the question, I think she said one very important thing, that she wishes that either the German parliament or the European parliament will take concrete steps to really make sure that these people are held accountable, whether within the EU institution or within Libya. This is, I think, one thing all of us are longing for, and we want to see efforts from you that push for this mechanism to exist.
Someone else question? Would you like to?
Yeah, I can also do it without a microphone. This one goes to you, Allison. So, because of the presence from ZAR NGOs, we are aware about projects in the Mediterranean Sea. But especially in the last year, we have also seen, because of brave journalists and also refugees in Libya, projects from Tunisia back to Libya, and also currently from Egypt back to Sudan. And I would like to know, do we have any legal tools to tackle these kind of situations? Or would you rather say this is a completely big tactic coming also from European stakeholders to fulfill the practice that also in future people will not being able to reach Mediterranean Sea anymore?
I think there for sure are legal tools to address it, some of the same legal tools. I mean, it will take a different kind of analysis and awareness of those situations. And it is something that, for instance, we together with refugees in Libya have started to look into, especially the situation in Tunisia now. I mean, also, as Mirka pointed out, we see the kind of replication of the EU-Libya model now happening in Tunisia. And yes, it's an incredibly disturbing pattern that you actually see the Tunisian authorities then dumping people back into Libya. And I think that there is something to this in terms of those people also then re-entering into this same system again. So yeah, this is something that we are for sure keeping an eye on and trying to better understand and find out. And yes, we'll be looking into using the same kind of complaints against individual actors responsible, but then there is of course also, there are also legal pathways to look at with regards to those states. It's very difficult in terms of, for instance, Egypt, which is not signed up to very many human rights treaties, but Tunisia is another case. Tunisia is actually signed up to quite a few, so there are lots of avenues to explore there as well. But I think something that you pointed to is something that we're also very interested in looking at too, the kind of continuities between those different contexts and trying to be able to pinpoint exactly where the lines of accountability would be between them, because we do see them as interconnected. Of course, they all have their own individual context as well. But yeah, so I hope that answers a bit.
Thank you. I'm afraid we have to stop our conversation here because you must go and because time is running out. But we have another hour of informal talking. If more of you have questions, most of us will be staying here for another hour. And you're more than welcome to participate tomorrow in the workshops, 3 workshops hosted by ECCHR. The first one 11, then 2 o'clock, and then 4 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. And I hope also that the conversation will be going more into detail concerning the work ECCHR is doing, the hotline of refugees in Libya, and also serious evacuation campaign done by us, ARE. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you.
Well, I have to take an opportunity. I will quote Naima again. She said that we shouldn't feel underestimated when we come today to this room. On every chair where you're sitting or next to you, there is a piece of paper which has either an immediate call to action that is, I believe, within our individual reach, things that we can do, and also in the background there is the mobile exhibition. It's nothing to be, which is not a fun topic, but there is so many ways that we can do. There is many ways that we can contribute through translation, through ideas. I invite you to take a look at them and to help us to develop in a friendly manner that we can bring people closer to this topic without them feeling distant in either way. We also, of course, need financial support, either for the direct cause of Libya or for the left where Hagen is standing. The deadly situation, which is now an epidemic in Tunisia. More than 30,000 people are completely isolated into the margins of society, and these 30,000 people, almost all of them are sick, and you can have a look there. And yeah, if you want to get in touch, there is many ways already described on newspapers how to get in touch. And thank you so much for your time.